بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin our lesson tonight by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity that we are able to continue with our lesson in Adab ini Suluk al-Murid and also Muqaddimah Hadramiyyah. Today, due to some errands I have, the class starts late, so we only have about in half an hour before the time of Isha, and inshallah ta'ala we will enter into our first kitab, that is Adab ini Suluk al-Murid. Inshallah we just take a bit of time before we continue with our lesson in Muqaddimah Hadramiyyah. So in our last lesson in Adab ini Suluk al-Murid, we are still in the chapter 6 of this kitab, where Al-Imam al-Haddad speaks about the importance on focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship. So the gist of what he mentioned in the beginning is the importance of us using the time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards his obedience, and this is what he mentioned. If you look at page 22, and he said that let him spend his breaths carefully, meaning the time. So the scholars of Tasawwuf, they use this metaphorical term to express any time in the form of breath. Every breath we take, a certain time or moment has passed, and this is a reflection of time. Hold on to his time. Do not let it pass wastefully, be it a little or long time, except to spend it in what takes him closer to Allah and benefit him on the day he meets him. So this is the conscience or the state of muraqabah, is what some scholars mention, that a person always reflects on the ni'mah of time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him with. The time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the biggest blessings. So how are we able to use our time? And we are able to reflect and ponder how we are using the time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which it gives us any benefit in this life and also in the hereafter. So if we find, for example, there are time that is wasted, then we must understand that time if it has passed, it can never be retained again. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq. So Al-Imam al-Haddad begin by speaking about the importance of this understanding and this reflection, and then he speaks about what are the important things that we have to equip ourselves in the time that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us see what are the few things that he mentioned, and it is important for us seekers of Allah to pay attention to some of these things, because this is how the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ulama, they look at life and how we are able to benefit from this life to attain any success in akhirah. So the first thing he mentioned, it is incumbent upon him to have daily recitals or a routine of every kind of worship. So this is important advice for all of us, including myself. We have to look at the amount of ibadah that we are doing daily. So for example, we begin by the time we wake up from our sleep, and all the way until we sleep for the night. So if we ponder upon our daily routine, then we are able to understand how we use the time, and whether the time that we use for the things that we do in reality gives us the benefit, as what is mentioned by the author. So he speaks about the daily recitals. Daily recitals include the awrad. Then that is the daily invocation in terms of the adhkar that we recite daily, and likewise the sunnah prayers, the qabliyah and ba'diyah, the rawatib prayers, the witr prayers, likewise the adhkar after prayers, the adhkar before prayers, the adhkar before entering the toilet, going out from the toilet, and before we sleep and after we wake up from sleep, before we eat and after we eat. So we have to look at our life, and then we have to ponder upon how much do we do in our daily practice. So this is how we are able to judge any ourselves, and how are we able any to understand that in reality any we are using the time any that is given any in a way that will attain inshallah ta'ala the pleasure any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is some of the things any that he teaches us, and how are we able any to ponder any upon, or to reflect any upon our own ibadah, daily any rituals. Then any he mentions so that he will have a number of those to hold on to and not neglect any of them, whether in difficult or easy times. So there is any certain things any that are established in terms any of invocations, and in terms any of certain any prayers, and certain any dua, and certain recitation any of the Quran, and certain any tasbih and tahmid. So this is the thing any that we have any to hold on to. You should read any the Quran frequently, and to reflect any on its meaning, and recite it harmoniously, any with tajweed, with the proper any recitation. And one thing any about the recitation any of the Quran, it is very important for us to take note that the Quran any has to be recited any properly any meaning. It has any to be recited with the correct any pronunciation, the correct any form of lengthening. This is point number one. And point number two any is about any to reflect any upon the meanings any of the Quran. So whenever any we speak any about the recitation any of the Quran, these are the two any main important any aspects any pertaining to the recitation of the Quran. Then only any Quran any can have an effect any on us. So we pray that Allah make it easy any inshallah ta'ala. So daily any we should have any daily invocations in the form of adhkar, and likewise any recitation any of the Quran. Also while reciting, you should reflect on the greatness any of the speaker in the recitation any of his words, and not like those who recite negligently, or those any who recite any the Quran eloquently with beautiful melodious voices, while whose hearts are devoid of the exaltation nor reverence for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are people any who recite the Quran very well, but they do not have any tadabbur, no reflection any upon the meanings. And likewise any there are people any who does not any recite any the Quran, and does not know how to recite any the Quran, but they might any be reflecting any on the meanings any of the Quran. They read it in the form it was sent down from its opening to its end, and know nothing of its meanings, nor of the reasons and occasions for sending each part any of it down. This is asbabun nuzul. Yani to equip any ourselves any with this knowledge. Had they known, they would have acted. So the best any of those any who recite in the Quran are those any who reflect any upon the meanings, and those any who put it into any practice. So inshallah ta'ala, from some many of these passages any that we have read any from Adab in Sulukil Murid, and we can understand where the author any plays any important in. Yani number one, and he speaks any about the daily invocations, and including any the sunnah any prayers, and the daily norm any that we do as a daily any practice. This has to be reflected, and we have any to improvise any ourselves, and we have any to put any a start any to being any in this path, yani where we are able any to recite a certain amount. Yani it goes back any to our own any capacity. So there must be any a certain amount any of daily any invocations any that we have to engage ourselves with. And point number two, any he speaks any about recitation any of the Quran any with any concentration and understanding any of its meaning. So this is some any of the few things any that he mentioned, inshallah ta'ala. In next week, and inshallah we continue any from here, and there are a few other things any that he mentioned any after this. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us any with the ability any to practice any what we have learned. So he's reading any the words of Imam al-Haddad. MashaAllah, yani it gives any our hearts hope, and also yani it brightens any the heart. At least any when you put any intention, inshallah, any Allah any will bless you any with the reward. So all of us inshallah who are listening, including myself, all of us any we put in intention inshallah yani to practice any what we have learned any today. So to give any importance any to the daily invocations, and also the recitation any of the Quran. May Allah bless us with easiness. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. So inshallah ta'ala, now any we will enter into our next any kitab of Muqaddimah Hadramiyyah. And last week any we were speaking any about the chapter any of Al-Istihada. So as you look here, this is the text any of Al-Imam Bayjuri, where he speaks any about the 7 situations any of Istihada. In English any we call it the chronic vaginal discharge. So I mentioned this basically last week, and last week I didn't translate. There was a mistake in translation. Somebody point out in one of the WhatsApp group. So just take note. So what we do is I actually reposted the translation in my Facebook. So it is slight mistake. It is a slight mistake, I believe, and it's point number 3. One of the four conditions. So inshallah, what we do, inshallah, we will go through it again. So the author mentioned the first type of istihada. We do any revision. Wallahu alam, maybe we don't have time to speak about the second part. But we are not in a hurry in reality. So inshallah, what is important is that we understand the topic, inshallah. Right, so now when we go through this again, the author mentioned as-suratul ula, the first situation. I also do not have time to translate fully today. Later on, inshallah, we go back to this. But the Arabic, as far as what the author is saying, he's speaking about al-mubtada'a. Al-mubtada'a, as what I mentioned last week, it is a situation where a girl or a woman who has never experienced any menses, and suddenly she saw blood. She is more than 9 years old, because in the minimum age is 9. That's what we mentioned in the beginning of the chapter of menses. So if a woman or a lady, for example, who has reached a certain age, and she has never experienced any menses, and then suddenly she saw blood, for example. So this, we call her al-mubtada'a. Al-mubtada'a comes from the word ibtida', the beginner. I translate as the beginner. Then he mentioned, and this person is able to distinguish the color of blood. Is able to distinguish the blood in itself, by the color. So he mentioned, وَهِيَ الْمُبْتَدَأَ أَيْ أَوَّلُ مَا إِبْتَدَأَهَا دَمُ الْمُمَيِّزَةِ she's mumayyiza. She's able to distinguish the strong blood and the weaker blood. وَهِيَ الَّتِي تَرَى قَوِيًّا وَضَعِيفًا كَالْأَسْوَدِ وَالْأَحْمَرِ. Then he gave an example. Strong blood and it will be the black in color, or weak blood and it will be red. If she saw black in color and red in color, so the black is considered to be the stronger in color, whereas the red is the weaker one. فَالضَّعِيفُ وَإِنْ طَالَ إِسْتِحَاضَةً. So there is no limit to the weaker blood. So if she saw the strong blood, that is black and in color, and she saw red and in color, so the red is considered to be istihada, whereas the thicker blood or the darker blood is considered to be any hayd. Even if the weaker blood can continue for many days, can continue for 20 days for example, or 25 days. And then he mentioned wal qawiyyu haydun. The thicker blood or the stronger blood is considered to be menses under 4 conditions. These are the 4 conditions that we mentioned. So inshallah we run through it again. I will give some examples, and inshallah from there we move on. So number 1, he said بِشَرْطِ أَنْ لَا يَنْقُصَ الْقَوِيُّ عَنْ أَقَلِّ الْحَيْضِ. That the strong blood and it cannot be lesser than aqallil hayd is 24 hours, layl and one nahar. So if the strong blood is lesser than 24 hours, it is not any menses. It is not considered to be what you call it. We cannot be saying that the stronger color is considered to be menses, because it is less than 24 hours. So this is the first condition. The strong blood must be more than 24 hours. So this again, and it is about the situation where she saw black and red. This is an example where she saw black and red. So if the black blood is less than 24 hours, we cannot be applying this concept of the darker color is menses and the weaker color is istihada. It cannot work that way if any of the conditions is not met. Just like the first condition as what we mentioned. Number 2, an la ya'bura aktharuhu. The strong blood should not exceed 15 days. Yani the maximum any number any of the maximum any number any of days. Now this is any the mistake of the translation I believe in last week. So the strong blood any should not exceed more than 15 days. Any for example any if she saw blood for 20 days any for example 16 days any black in color, 4 days any red in color, we cannot be saying 16 days any is menses, 4 days any is istihada. Why? Because any it exceed more than 15 days. So the maximum number of days for menses any is 15 days, and that's what we mentioned before this. So we cannot any apply any this principle by this distinguishment any of colors. So this is any point any number 2. Number 3, wa an la yanqusa ad-da'ifu an aqalli tuhri. The weaker blood any should not any be less any than the minimum any number of clean days, that is 15 days. This is in a situation if she saw blood any after that which is strong. So this is an example any which I gave any last week. Inshallah later any we come back into this example. But I hope any it is clear. Point number 4, any wa an yakuna wila'an, that the blood any must be continuous. Then the author any gave any example, not any continuous any meaning she saw blood any black in color for one day, and then the next day any she saw red any in color, and then black in color, and then red in color. This is not any continuous, so we cannot any apply any the concept that the darker color any is menses and the weaker color any is considered any to be istihada. So he said, فَإِنْ نَقَصَ الْقَوِيُّ عَنْ أَقَلِّ الْحَيَضِ. The first situation, any if any the strong blood any is less any than the minimum any menses, then it is not any, we cannot any consider the color any as a correct any distinguishment. Number 2, أَوْ عَبَرَ أَكْسَرُهُ, the stronger blood any exceeds any the maximum number of days any for menses, or نَقَصَ الضَّعِيفُ عَنْ أَقَلِّ طُهْرِ. This is just any repetition. If any the weaker blood any is less any than the minimum any days any of the clean days, that is any 15 days. أو لم يكن ولاء, or it is not any continuous. كما رأت يوما أسود ويوما أحمر وهكذا. Just like any she saw any one day black and one day red. فهي فاقدة شرط من شروط التمييز وسيأتي حكمها. So if any of these 4 any happens, then we do not consider she is mumayyiza. We do not any consider her to be mumayyiza. So yani there is any another any ruling any to this. So we cannot any be saying that the what you call it, the darker blood any is menses and the weaker blood any is istihada. Just now I tried to translate the second slide, but because any of time and I do not have much time I need to edit. Afwan ala kulli hal. So this basically any gist any of what I mentioned earlier, the translation. The one who experienced any blood any for the first time, she saw strong and weak bloods like black and red. And then as for the strong blood, it will be considered to be menses under these 4 conditions. And in number 1, it is not less than 24 hours. Number 2, it does not extend to more than 15 days. It is not less than the minimum clean days. This is any pertaining any to the weaker blood, and it is continuous. And then this is the example. Okay, now yani we go back and to give any some examples. So these are some of the examples. A woman and saw blood and for 10 days and black in color, and then and for 10 days and red in color. So we say the black the black blood and is considered to be menses, and the red and is considered to be any istihada. Type this one any no problem any, because any this one any we say it is more than 24 hours. The blood is more than 24 hours and less than the maximum number any of menses. So 10 days is more than the minimum and less any than the maximum. So no issue any we say that it is any menses. The black blood and is menses, whereas any the red blood any is istihada. And then this is the next part any is the condition any number 3. Condition any number 3, 10 days any black. 10 days any black, and then 10 days red, and then 10 days black. So can you see this? So if a woman any for example and she say this is my cycle. This is any is my cycle. Yani 10 days black, and then 10 days red, and then 10 days black. Can we say that the first 10 days any is menses? No, this is not any menses. Why? Because in between yani the dark color any the dark color, we have any this in between, which is any the lighter color, and it is less any than 15 days. This is any the condition number 3. And if you look at the condition number 3, the author yani mentioned, Imam Bajuri, and he mentioned that the weaker blood and it cannot be less than the what you call it minimum clean days, that is 15 days. So since the weaker blood is less than 15 days, so we do not any consider the black any to be menses and the red any to be istihada. So how do we calculate any the menses? The menses any is 1 day, because now here we are talking any about mubtada'a. Since any this condition cannot be applied, so it is as though she is unable any to distinguish any the blood. So she is ghayrul mumayyiza, not mumayyiza. She is mubtada'a ghayrul mumayyiza. So if you have any a woman who is a beginner, who never experienced any menses, and suddenly any she saw blood any for 20 days or for 30 days any for example, and she cannot differentiate the blood, whether literally any she cannot differentiate any by assessing any the color all the same, or any of the 4 conditions, and that's what we mentioned any earlier is cannot be applied. So she takes any the ruling any of ghayrul mumayyiza, not mumayyiza. So if ghayrul mumayyiza and she is a mubtada'a, yani a beginner yani to menses, then the menses any is the first day, any day 1 any is considered to be the menses. So if she can remember any for example that she saw blood any for example in the 3rd any of Rabiul Awwal, for example, she saw blood any in the 3rd any of Rabiul Awwal, or the 10th any of Rabiul Awwal any for example, and then from the 10th any of Rabiul Awwal any all the way to Rabiul Akhir, 10 any Rabiul Awwal to 10 any Rabiul Akhir. So she knows any that she first any spotted any blood on the 10 any Rabiul Awwal. So we say that the first day any is considered to be menses, the rest any is considered to be any istihada. The rest any is considered to be any istihada. So the menses any is considered to be menses any considered to be 1 day. So I hope any this is clear any inshallah. Actually any I wanted to write any more any example, is just any I do not have time any today due any to some errands any that what you call it I was caught up with today. But ala kulli hal, pertaining any to the 4th condition, I mentioned earlier that she saw 1 day black, 1 day red, 1 day black, 1 day red, 1 day black, 1 day red for 20 days any for example. So in this situation, how do you ascertain any menses any or non-menses? So again any we say this is mubtada'a ghayrul mumayyiza, even though any she can see the difference any of the colors any of the blood, but we do not any consider her any to be a mumayyiza, that we can apply the ruling of tamyiz. So she is considered to be ghayrul mumayyiza, so we say that the menses any is considered to be the first day. The first day is considered to be any the menses. So the rest any is considered any to be what? The rest any is considered any to be istihada. It is considered any to be any istihada. Taib. Now any we go on any to the second any situation. This is what you call it, some any colors, different colors any of period. So as you can see any sometimes any it is dark in color, sometimes any it is light in color. This is any for basically more in it for the men who what you call it might not yani know any about so many of these differences in colors and when it comes into menses. So we have any blood that is orangey, blood any that is maroon, blood any that is greyish. Now this any happens any to some any women. Some women any for example experiencing any sickness, the blood becomes any yellowish. So these are some of the difference any of colors. Now inshallah ta'ala, now we go any to the second part. Also I do not have time to translate today. Inshallah all this any I'll try to translate into my best inshallah in the upcoming any lesson. Inshallah once after some time, once I get everything up, inshallah any I will share any this translation inshallah. So now any we go any to the second any situation. So the author any mentioned wahiya al mubtada'atu ay awwalu ma ibtada'a haddamu kama taqaddama ghayrul mumayyiza. So now any is the second any situation, istihada of the beginner with non-distinctive blood characteristics. So a simple an example, any for example, a woman again, she's a mubtada'a, she has never any experienced menses, and then suddenly she saw blood for 20 days. She saw blood for how many days? 20 days. Now this exceeds the maximum number of days any for menses. We cannot only be saying the whole of 20 days it's menses. And another issue is she cannot differentiate the color of the blood. It's all red, and for example 20 days straight, and it is all considered to be red. So this is what we call as mubtada'a ghayrul mumayyiza. Either she cannot differentiate any of the blood, or any of the characteristics any of tamyiz any is not any present, as what we mentioned any in our previous and also earlier. So this is any important any for us any to take note, especially any for ladies. وهي المبتدأ أي أول ما ابتدأها الدم كما تقدم غير المميزة وهي التي تراه بصفة واحدة. This is an example. And she saw any blood any with one characteristic. Red, all of them and it becomes red. Or black, the whole and it becomes black. ومثلها المميزة التي فقدت شرطا من شروط التمييز. This is what we mentioned any earlier. فقدت any شرطا من شروط التمييز. Any of the four conditions and is not present, she is any considered any to be غير مميزة. غير المميزة. Even though yani she can see the difference any in the colors. Now this is the thing that a lot any I think a lot any of women any they are confused any in this part. I think so. Because any we are in need any to memorize any these four conditions. So that is why any I think any sometime any to revise any again. Inshallah any hopefully any it becomes any clear. Then what happens now? Yani now any you have a beginner. Either she saw blood in 20 days and red in color, she cannot differentiate the blood, or she saw blood in different colors, but the conditions any of tamyiz, as what we mentioned, is not any present. So how do we ascertain any menses any for her? So the author any mentioned فَحَيْضُهَا يَوْمٌ وَلَيْلَةٌ. So the menses any is 24 hours. يَوْمٌ وَلَيْلَةٌ. Yani the first day any when she saw any blood, the first any 24 hours any is considered any to be menses. وَطُهْرُهَا تِسْعٌ وَعِشْرُونَ. So the what you call it, the clean days, the rest of it and is considered to be clean days. So 29 days and is considered to be clean days. The first day and is considered any to be any menses. Because now any again, if she is a beginner, meaning she doesn't have any norm, she doesn't have any norm. Then we go back and into the minimum number of minimum any menses, that is 24 hours. So how do we ascertain any the menses? It is the first day. It is the first day and when she saw blood. This is in a situation if she remembers when and she saw blood. But what happens any if she doesn't remember when is the first day? And we ask her any for example, she said that she saw blood any for example any 20 days what you call it, or she said that more than 15 days and for example she saw blood any red and in color. We ask her when do you start any seeing any this blood? She cannot any remember. If she cannot any remember, then it falls any into another category. This is not any considered any to be mubtada'a ghayr mumayyiza. It is considered any to be mutahayyira. Yani this is the thing any that inshallah maybe any next week any we will speak about. Yani a situation anywhere a woman for example she forgets completely when she saw blood and what you call it, either she is a mubtada'a meaning a beginner, or she is even any mu'tada but she forgets that her norm, how many days and usually her menses and is. This is any a situation where our fuqaha any mention it is a situation any of the al-mutahayyira or yani mutahayyira. We have two terms, yani mutahayyira yani ismul fa'il, and mutahayyira yani ismul maf'ul. Mutahayyira yani basically the meaning of mutahayyir is the one who causes hayran any to others. Yani the what you call it, amazement. The one who causes amazement. The reason why she's called mutahayyira because any hayyaratil faqih. Yani she caused any amazement into the faqih that she is asking. Because it is difficult to ascertain any her menses. Or mutahayyira meaning she herself is in a state of confused or in a state of amazed by her own situation. So these things is coming. So going back to the second situation, which is al-mubtada'a ghayrul mumayyiza, yani a beginner who is unable to distinguish the characteristics of the blood. If she saw blood any more than the maximum what you call it, a number of days for menses, then the menses is considered to be the first day, the considered to be the 24 hours of the first day of when she start seeing the blood. If she says for example I begin to saw blood for example on the 3rd of Rabiul Awwal, until 23rd of Rabiul Awwal, any all any red any color. From the 3rd of Rabiul Awwal, any on all the way any until what you call it, the 23rd of Rabiul Awwal. So we take any 24 hours, any from the time any she spot any the blood, we take any 24 hours. So we tell her that the first day any is menses, the rest any is considered any to be istihada. The rest any is considered to be istihada. So this is any the situation any of the beginner. Unless any if she has a norm, then we go back any to her. We go back any to her norm. This is the next situation. So I hope any it is clear any inshallah. I hope any it is clear and there is no need any for me to demonstrate. Now, if you have question any you can ask. If you have question, you can ask. Okay, there's one question here. Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum salam. We recently read that it is allowed for a woman to cut nails during menses. Is it true? It's makruh. Any pertaining any to cutting nails any when menses. It is makruh. This is mentioned by Al-Imam Ghazali any in Ihya Ulumuddin. Clear inshallah? Taib. Inshallah, we have a bit more time. Any time of Azan of Isha has not come. Now, inshallah, we look at the third situation. The third situation is the author mentioned al-mu'tada al-mumayyiza. So I translated the one who has also I haven't really translate. This is just need some editing, and I was doing it in a rush in reality. Ala kulli hal the one who has a habitual menstruation, meaning she is the opposite of the beginner. She has experienced menses. This is basically the meaning of mu'tada. A woman who has experienced menses and she is able to distinguish the blood. She is able to distinguish the blood. For example, then she said that my menses every month 6 days. Every month during the second week of the month, for example. Every month during the second week of the month, 6 days my menses. But suddenly this month comes I saw blood for 20 days. So we asked her, can you distinguish the characteristics of the blood? So she said that she can distinguish the characteristics and the characteristics of the blood. So she is a person who has a habitual menstruation and is able to distinguish the blood. طيب. So he said, وَهِيَ الَّتِي تَرَى قَوِيًّا وَضَعِيفًا كَمَا تَقَدَّمَ. This is the meaning of mumayyiza. She is able to distinguish the darker color and the weaker color. فَيُحْكَمُ لَهَا بِتَمْيِيزٍ لَا عَادَةٍ. So now, for example, let me just give an example. She said, for example, that every month I saw blood for 6 days. And my menses 6 days every month. This month 20 days. This month 20 days. So we asked her, for example, her, can you distinguish the color of the blood? She said, yes. She said, the first 10 days is black in color. The second 10 days is red in color. But she said that my norm is only 6 days every month. But this month I saw 20 days. The first 10 days is black in color. The second 10 days is red in color. So now the question we ask, do we ascertain the menses based on her norm or based on the distinguishment of the blood? So maybe what I will do is I will write this down. Let me write this down, so that inshallah easy for you to understand. Okay, so now the situation is like this. Now she said that monthly 6 days, correct or not? So she said that every second week of the month my menses is usually 6 days, my norm. This is considered to be mu'tada, correct or not? To the second week. But she saw 20 days. This month she saw how many? 20 days of blood. So she can distinguish this 20 days she said 10 days black, 10 days red. This is black. This is red. Tamam? Okay, so now how do we ascertain the menses? Do we go back 6 days? Based on what? Based on the norm? Or we say that this is the menses, the black is the menses, while the red is istihada. This is istihada. So which one is which? Do we give precedence any to the norm, or we give any precedence any to the distinguishment any of the characteristic any of the blood? Which is it? The answer is we give any precedence any to the distinguishment of the blood. This is what any Imam Bayjuri any mentioned. Then he said then the distinguishment any of the color any of the blood is stronger than the norm. So when there is a clash between the norm and the distinguishment any of blood, we give any precedence to the distinguishment any of blood because any it is stronger than going back any to the norm. So now when we go back any to what Imam Bayjuri any mentioned, look at what he said. He said fayuhkamu laha bitamyiz la ada. So we go back any to tamyiz, any meaning the distinguishment any of the color characteristics any of the blood, not any the norm. Mukhalafatan lahu in lam yatakhallal bainahuma aqallu tuhri. In lam yani yatakhallal yani bainahuma aqallu tuhri. Falau kanat adatuha khamsa. He gave an example. If her norm is 5 days, min awwal shahr wa baqiyatu tuhr, falamma nazala alayha ad-dam istamarra ra'at 10 aswad min awwal shahr wa baqiyatu ahmar kana hayduha al-10 lal khamsa. So this is what we mentioned, that in between there must be what you call it, if any between any the two blood, the lesser any color is more than 15 days, then we go back to the distinguishment of the characteristic of the characteristics of the blood, as what we mentioned one of the conditions number 3 pertaining to the conditions of tamyiz. So this is exactly what the author mentioned. He said that if she saw blood normally 5 days, and then after that the blood comes for more than 15 days, and the first 10 days is 10, the rest is the weak blood, and before the next blood comes, there is in between more than 15 days then we consider the first 10 days is menses, and we do not consider the norm that is 5 days to be menses. This is what he said. He said واستمر رأت 10 أسود من أول شهر. She saw 10 what you call it, black and in color, and the guys she saw red. Then the menses is the 10 days and not the 5 days based on norm. Then he mentioned the anna tamyiza aqwa min al-ada. This is the reason, this is the illah. Because the distinguishment of blood, as what we mentioned, it is stronger than the what you call it, than the norm. لأنه علامة في الدم وهي علامة في صاحبته. Because this distinguishment is an indication of the difference of the nature of the blood. فلو كانت العادة غير مخالفة للتمييز كما لو كانت عادتها 5 أيام من أول شهر فجاء التمييز كذلك حكم لها بهما معا. If 5 days based on norm, 5 days based on the distinguishment, then no problem you say it is 5 days as the 5 days as menses. Wallahu a'lam bis sawab. So inshallah ta'ala we will then stop here because of time, and we will continue in the next week inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbana taqabbal du'ana innaka antas samiul alim wa tub alayna innaka antat tawwabur rahim. واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا وأجرنا الله يكرم. قل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون. سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.